We're going to call this meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order December 12th. First order of business, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the secretary please read the roll.
Chairman Aida. Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Conti.
Here.
Commissioner Fox. Here. Commissioner Payne.
Here.
Commissioner Gieske.
Here.
Commissioner Woods.
Here.
Commissioner Vitalica.
Here.
Commissioner Braverman.
Here.
Commissioner Giangro.
Okay, we have a full complement of commissioners here, plus two alternates. The alternates stay because there might be, and if in case someone recuses themselves on any of the items that are on the agenda tonight. Okay. Approval of the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have one item to add under petitions for public hearing scheduling. Petition 53-18, it's an application for a special permit for an accessory apartment at 99 Cedarwood Lane. So I recommend holding the hearing on this at your meeting, the next meeting in January.
So when it comes up, we'll just have a quick discussion. Okay, any commissioner changes or comments on the agenda? Okay. Public participation, anyone from the public wishing to speak at this time? Please come forward, speak, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is David Pells. Live at 18 Spur Lane. I wanted to speak about the procedure that Mr. Minor is recommending on petition 51-18. So as I understand it, he is suggesting that the commission proceed.
A point of order here, Mr. Planner. This is an item that's on the agenda. Public participation normally doesn't have the opportunity to discuss items that are part of the agenda.
Right. I spoke to Mr.
He's
Pells.
talking about a specific item that's coming up under old businesses, item B.
Yes, that is what he wants to speak about, but I believe he can limit his comments to the process.
Okay.
Rather than the substance of the application, which I don't think would be a problem for him to express to you his concerns with the process. That's been laid out for tonight.
If you limit your talks to just the process, because I don't want to get into a gray area where we're allowing you to go against the procedures that this zoning commission follows.
Okay.
So just if you
All right,
limit it to just the process, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
The process that concerns me is that there has indeed been a public hearing on a very specific plan. Mr. Minor is recommending to you that you vote on the petition as presented at that public hearing on the condition that there be a subsequent revision. So my concern is that the revision is not going to be presented to the public, and the public will not have an opportunity to comment on the revision. And I believe as a matter of fairness, the public and the entire commission should see the revision before they vote.
And can you, for the commission's edification, just tell us about how the revision that you envision as part of the motion?
Right. The revision would be as a result of the objections that the neighborhood raised during the public hearing. So what I'm recommending is that the commission approve the plans with the condition that the plans be revised to address the neighbors' concerns, and that the chairman not sign those plans until they have been revised to address the neighbor's concern as to be fair, as adjudicated by me, because at this point, it's not a public hearing, and at this point, the neighbors shouldn't be allowed to look at the plans. But I think their concerns were pretty clearly stated at the public hearing. I think the commission, when the chairman sees the revised plan, if the chairman doesn't feel that the revision.
If the revisions that you're suggesting as part of the motion gets approved by this commission, when they read the motion and discuss the motion, whether they want to have those conditions on as part of the motion or not.
Right.
Let's make that clear.
Right.
Okay,
All right,
do you feel that we're on solid ground here, Mr. Planner, as far as,
Well, I wouldn't say solid ground, but I think the process, that process would sustain an appeal. In the future, you might want to,
We don't.
Be hold off on-
We never show anybody the revisions. The revisions is,
I know.
is usually, this is minor, some of these revisions that we're talking about. And we set record, and we set the record during the meeting, and those, imagine if you had to revise or review all the town engineer's comments. I mean, come on. I mean, we don't do that.
right.
I think when, during the process, we heard from the public, we understood what they said. You've come up with some language that you feel should be in there, and it'll be something that this commission will debate and, hopefully do the right thing.
any other commissioners want to weigh in on this item?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? Under public participation? Okay, seeing none, zoning enforcement officer's report.
Commissioners, you have the ZEO report in your packets, and if you have any questions about that, as well as following those questions, if you have any, I had a few issues from the last TPZ meeting to look into, and I'd like to go over those as well. Any questions on the report?
Go ahead, Phil.
Go ahead, Mr. Patel.
I got a question on this 366 Maple Hill Avenue. Who's the owner on that property?
I believe it's Matthew Cradell.
That's all you got, a flatbed with abandoned vehicles. It looks like a junkyard.
Yeah, he's gotten rid of a few vehicles. He's made some progress. It does look like a junkyard.
Fine?
No, he is not. He's working towards compliance right now.
Yeah, the vehicle is showing up on Francis Avenue.
How long does this go on? I mean, it just seems to me
Not
like
at all.
the ordinance is no good. There's no.
You're right.
It's an on and off.
5 cars.
How many?
Mr.
Like
Chairman?
5 now.
It's almost like an on and off type of
Okay,
thing.
one at a time.
Outside and two in front
One
of
at a
the
time,
house.
gentlemen, and then you'll all have an opportunity. Go ahead.
I would suspect the enforcement officer that this is something that comes and goes, and some people it's easier to enforce, and they do it right away, and they don't do it again. And there's others that take advantage of things, and then the enforcement officer has to continue to stay on top of it. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Commissioner Sobieski.
Yes, just to let you know, they're showing up on Francis Avenue, in front of the railroad, on a railroad property now.
Okay, so this is a problem, this is a problem that goes back, this goes back for a number of years now. This commission's been wrestling with this problem. He moves the cars from Francis Avenue to his house, then from his house to Francis Avenue, back and forth. And that's how he's getting away with these junk cars all over the town of Newington. And I don't know what the solution is on the zoning. That's all we could do is just keep after them. I don't know what other remedy there is
All I'm
to it.
saying is that apparently the ordinance has no guts behind it.
We all know that.
If this guy can jump all over town with junk cars, what good is the ordinance?
Well, he's, if I may, he's working towards a plan of compliance, so until he is not making progress, you know, I think I'll work with him until I find that he is, going above my head or trying to trick me or things aren't moving along. At this point, I'm fairly new and I'm giving him a chance. He has been making progress, but now I'm finding out some additional
Mike's playing games
information.
with me too. So, he's definitely playing games with the town of Newington.
Okay.
And he's getting away with it.
Okay.
That's what's ironic about this whole situation.
Mr. Claffey.
I have a more question of an overall town problem, because half of these violations are unregistered vehicles, illegal parking. And it's not just epidemic proportions in that said property or the other said property that he said owns, but it's like 897 Main Street, it keeps going and going and going. We're like almost 6 months into this thing. And
Right.
again, unregistered vehicle in driveway, and it's like, and I know some of the dates aren't yours, but my point is I know as a commissioner, I don't want to see this continue, because I'd say over half of these illegal parking, unregistered, flatbed, abandoned, multiple commercial vehicles parked on, I mean,
Yeah.
it's epidemic in this town. So is there a problem with the ordinance, or are we gonna come back to this like commercial vehicles? And I mean, any street you go on, I've seen, there's one by me on West Hartford Road. It's been 4 years and there's 3 unregistered vehicles. It was from a previous commissioner brought it up, and he hasn't been on this commission in over a year. And it has nothing to do with you, but my point is, like 4 years, like what, there's gotta be something. It's in probate.
The problem is,
That
a person.
one, and then the one across the street, which I brought up, which seriously isn't on the list. It's just,
A person who knows the law and knows how to play the game and wants to play the game will win 99 times out of 100.
I agree with you.
So that's,
Okay.
yeah,
No, I mean,
it's frustrating.
Because this isn't even, touches the bucket of how many vehicle violations are in town. I mean, this is just a snapshot for a month.
Right. We've been getting a ton of
So-
commercial and illegal parking and unregistered
But
vehicles.
I get, like, let's use the Main Street one. It says unregistered vehicles or vehicles at one, it says
And
four unregistered vehicles. I know that it was previous.
Right.
I mean, is there a way to add to this so we can see, like it says, working on plan of compliance, like he removed, can we add notes so we kind of understand, like he went from 4 cars to 2 cars to 1 car, and then we can see that plan so it doesn't get everyone. Because this just says working on a plan of compliance to the average Joe.
Right.
You know, is there a way in the system to add notes?
It's not a great system for entering information, but what I can do is make it so it says plan for compliance and
Gotcha.
gives a brief note of what's happening. And I would like to say on 897 Main Street, that's been going on for a while, but that's also kind of a sensitive subject that
House, is it?
897 Main Street, there's some privacy issues going on with that one that,
I can't place that.
Yeah, I'm trying to place it.
it's, I believe it's like Main and Wells Drive.
It's right.
It's right on the corner. It's a corner
House
home.
next to the house next to the
Market.
market, or next to the Starbucks.
I don't know that.
I'm not sure.
I used to have that greenhouse, had that dumpster in its front yard for like a year.
Yeah, they got rid of that.
They finally got rid of that. I think
897.
I know where you're talking. I think it's actually the house right to the left if you're looking at the market.
No, is that red house?
Yeah, like that 2-family.
It
That's
used to be owned by Ucello.
yeah.
897 is kind of one of the special situations where there's some privacy issues with that one, and that's more of a long-term compliance plan where I've got to work on a long-term basis. Okay.
And let me, can you add if there is something like, if something is in probate, can we add that in notes? Because we all know kind of how long probate and estates take.
I can work on that also.
I don't know if it's like, hey, working on plan of compliance in probate, then we kind of know there's a process there that's above us that we can't do anything about.
Okay, so just, if you could add some notes to
Appreciate
help
that.
the commissioners clarify some of it, would be helpful. Commissioner Payne?
Yeah, at one time, the town attorney recommended a ticket system for us, and we approved it and moved it up to council. I was wondering if the staff could give us an update. Did that ever go anywhere, or did it get diluted to the point where it serves no purpose?
Well, the short answer is I think it ended up not going anywhere, but I can do some research and give you a more complete answer at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Comments or questions for the zoning enforcement officer? Any items you want him to look at over the next month or so that you feel are problems? Commissioner Claffey?
Can you look at the Francis, bring him up to speed on the Francis and Day Street situation with that same violator? Just,
Yep.
I don't know the exact address out of my head, so,
I know what you mean. Yep.
and how that pertains to the court action?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to know whether or not we've started our drive-through.
Yes.
And then the other question was, at the last meeting, I think Commissioner Claffey brought up a Fen Road complex over there about coming into, are they planning on coming in?
Yeah, sorry, Andrew. Andrew's going to talk about that.
So initially, we were kind of looking at the requirements for the site plan review and approval by TPZ as the 10% and so forth, but it came to Craig and my attention that they had done some significant grading and removal of landscaping on the site, and so we've sent them a certified letter asking them to come in for review and approval of 135 Fen.
Do you know off the top of your head if that's a conforming site? Does it conform with everything?
I believe that it does, off the top of my head.
Okay.
Because
that would be
I
something
reviewed
that
for
you would-
setbacks, so yes.
Well, that would be something that you would look at before you would allow them to put an addition onto the building, because if it was a non-conforming site, then you can't expand a non-conformity, correct?
Just check that.
Okay.
Commissioner
I had
Claffey?
another check on, I had sent it, Andrew, and we had some emails back and forth. The site across the street from there, and I'm gonna use the business name, but it's not his concern, the Dakota Knights Throwing Axe, the parking situation. Do we have or can we get a copy? I've misplaced it, of the approved site plan for that, for the parking, for the next meeting?
Yes.
And, I understand you went out and looked, the trucks aren't there.
Right.
They must have seen you, because now they're backing the trucks in late at night, which is fine, they put them behind the fence, but that fence or gate is what's constricting the parking also, because there's spots behind it. During the day, you won't see the trucks, so.
Okay.
I know it, it's at night, so if by next meeting we can have a copy, even if you're not here, just so we can all look at it and kind of understand why these cars are being parked on the grass all the way up to Fen Road. It gets back to the original are we calculating these type of facilities that share parking properly with the amount of space they need? It's more of I use them as an example for a bigger picture in town, than just them, but they're them. And the last question I had was what's going on with the pizza joint at the new salon / parking lot, Puerto Vallarta. Where are we at with that?
Artichokes Pizza on the Burlington.
And what specifically are you?
The site plan was changed and they put a cut through to the Puerto Vallarta.
John Fornato property.
Okay, so the solution that we came up with was he wants to come back in and get an amendment to have that access go through the two parking lots. So in the interim, he's going to have some curbing on both sides with something to indicate that you can't go through until he's able to apply for an amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if I remember correctly, that was supposed to be all green space, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Well,
something
actually, the
else is
dumpster, the dumpster closure was going to be on the green space, which is now off to one side, but yes, it was supposed to be.
We want to take a real
Grass.
good look at that, because we approved certain thing, and I don't want to say that he has a tendency to do stuff without come in for an approval, and then when he's doing the work, he changes it to suit himself. He's done that on a couple of items. So we've got to look at it closely, whether we want to amend it or not. Yeah, have him come in and we'll take a look at it. Need some plans and some the original site plan and then what's out there now.
Right. What the staff has worked out with the owner is he has posted a cash bond in an amount to make the final
Curbing and
curbing,
everything, yeah.
right? In the meantime, he has a CO so they can open for business, but there's a hefty cash bond to ensure that he eventually will come back and ask for either permanently be able to keep that cut through or restored, whichever is the commission's preference.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If that's green space, I don't think we have the authority to waive green space, do we?
Well, no, what I mean is,
Oh.
it was part of the landscaping on his site plan. And if there's enough landscaping elsewhere that he meets the minimum footage
Well,
of
that's what I'm
landscaping.
saying. If he doesn't meet the minimum standards with that taken out, then.
Then you'd have to deny it, right?
It would be impossible for him to come in. So what
Right.
I'm saying is staff should look at that and determine whether or not it's even possible
Sure.
to come in and ask for something, because we can't waive our regulations.
Correct. Good point. Yep.
Okay, so
So
why
we'll
don't-
make sure we look at it before it even comes
Take
to
a
you.
look at that before he comes in. There's no sense wasting his time if, he's looking for a waiver and we don't have the authority to waive. Okay, anything else for the zoning enforcement officer? Okay, thank you very much. Next item is remarks by commissioners. Any remarks at this time? Commissioner Payne.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if our next meeting, we could put on the agenda on November 28th. There was some statements made by the staff that when Commissioner Claffey brought up zoning laws on hotels, staff informed us that certain zoning laws aren't enforced. And I have some problems with that. So I was wondering if we could get that on the agenda next meeting, please.
Make it as a item under,
Town planner report?
yeah, sure, as long as you get it on there. Might want to take a look at that whole situation, the hotel thing on the Turnpike. Any other commissioner remarks? Okay, there are no public hearings tonight. Approval of minutes, there's the minutes of November 28th.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made in second. Any discussion? Any corrections, additions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next item, new business, petition 5218. Have the secretary please read 5218 into the record so that we can get a presentation.
Site plan approval at 188 Costello Road, 188 Costello Road, LLC, owner applicant Brian Hachio, 167 Kelsey Street, Newington, Connecticut, contact.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself. I don't have a conflict, but I want to make sure that there's no appearance of a conflict. My daughter dates one of the applicant's owners, so I'm going to recuse myself. Thank you.
Okay, have Commissioner Patalico sit in for Commissioner Payne on this application. The applicant is here. Please state your name and address for the record and make your presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni, the Bongiovanni Group Incorporated here in Newington. I'm representing DiCiaccio Brothers and Brian DiCiaccio in this application before you tonight for site plan approval for Lot 4, 188 Costello Road in Newington. DiCiaccio Brothers is an established construction company that's been located on Kelsey Street in Newington for many years. They've had the opportunity to purchase this property, which they've done, and they want to build their own facility to house their business. The site plan, as Mr. Minor has it, is up on the board before you. It's a very basic application. It's a lot, a 2.14 acre lot in the PD zone as part of the Costello Industrial Park. This lot has laid vacant since the subdivision was approved in the 80s. It's been overgrown. It's had a bunch of junk stored on it. Since the DiCiaccio brothers bought it, they've cleaned most of the debris and junk and done some clearing on the site. And now they're proposing to construct a 7,500 square foot facility to house their construction equipment and their office and their business operations. We have at the southwest corner entrance driveway where the trucks would enter the site to a parking field, and then access to the west side of the building for the overhead doors. To the east, we have car parking for the employees, and then another entrance at the cul-de-sac or in the easterly portion of the site to have the vehicles traverse around the site. They have at maximum 14 employees. Parking is dictated by the maximum count of employees. We've demonstrated and shown 17 spaces for the site to accommodate any visitors that may come. It's being serviced by MDC Sewer and Water. The site, as it's graded, slopes from south to the north. You'll see the darker green area. That represents a couple things. An area that is going to be revegetated. When they cleared the property, they didn't realize that it was a regulated area. It's the upland review to the wetlands that are to the north. So they're in the process of applying to that commission for approval of some corrective measures to reestablish that vegetation that they had removed. And then the remaining portion to the south, which we're proposing to develop. The site drains towards the west as part of the subdivision development. A drainage system was designed to accommodate increased rates of runoff from all the development of those lots. So detention for each individual lot is not necessary, though we do have to comply with the low impact design criteria and water quality. If you look to the right or to the north of the parking area, we've designed the grading so that it sheet flows into a bioswale. It's going to capture the first flush of rain. It'll go through media soil, as we've done on several other projects in the past, and then it'll go through an under drain and exit the site towards the cul-de-sac in a pipe system. I think they've done a nice job selecting their own landscaping to enhance the building, provide some shade and screening where necessary, and it fits within the town's requirements. We're not asking for any special exceptions or waivers here. It's really an as-of-right development. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I don't think there's much to this.
Alan, can you address the, where they're gonna park their equipment? I know that they have a tremendous amount of equipment. They have a lot of, earth-moving machines and big trucks and stuff. Where is that gonna be? All of that can't fit in the building, can it?
A number of the vehicles and trailers will be parked inside the building, especially things that are susceptible to theft and things like that. The triaxle dump trucks would be parked in that parking field just to the top of the building or to the west of the building. So in that area there is where the equipment is proposed to be stored.
Which is, not where the drainage is, it's.
No.
The parking, the paved area?
Yep, that large area just to the top of the building.
Oh, okay.
Above
Just
the building,
up
right.
there. Okay.
Yep. If you look, there's dashed areas where it shows the overhead doors. There's areas of blank wall where you have a couple parking spaces for large trucks in front of the building without interfering with the doors and the operation of the interior of the building. But a lot of care and time was spent with the applicant so that we could come up with a layout that best suits their needs.
Okay, just want to make sure they have enough room for, they've thought about and accommodate their equipment, because I know they have, you know, I'm familiar with the Kelsey Street operation, and I'm glad to see that, you know, we get to open up another building on Kelsey Street for another business, and we get to develop this. This area is an industrial park that we've been working on for years and years, and I was surprised to see that someone bought this. I looked at that piece years ago, and we got, I think there's one or two other pieces left.
There's a couple
there.
vacant lots left over there, correct?
Oh, good. Any questions for the applicant on this? Commissioner Woods?
Alan, are they gonna fence in the property?
The intention is not
Not
to
to
fence
fence
the
it?
property,
I don't
no.
see any.
They don't really have outside storage of nursery stock and materials and things like that. Like, again, those landscape trailers and things where you have small tools, that would generally be stored inside. It could be, a triaxle and things like that can be locked up from the outside, would be stored outside.
I think it's a little deceiving as far as and the chairman makes a good point of the equipment outside on their facility, but they've got a lot of equipment in a very small space. I mean, this building is bigger than the space that they have over there.
Right,
so
this is
it's a little bit
considerably-
out of context.
Right,
Yeah,
look
so-
considerably larger than their current location.
Yeah, no, this
I
is,
just
looks
want
like a good plan.
While you're doing it, you might as well do it
Understood.
so that you accommodate what your needs are. And I'm sure that you've done that, Alan. Okay, Mr. Planner, you have any comments or?
Yes, two comments. My own comments on the site plan are minor, and I conveyed them to the applicant. I think they can address them. During construction, there's going to be a riprap pad here so that as construction leaves the site, the mud will be retained there. But I was concerned that construction being what it is, there'd be nothing to prevent this from also tracking mud into the street. So I asked the applicants to revise their E&S control plan to make sure that during construction, all trucks enter and leave from that side. And then the other point, as Mr. Bongiovanni mentioned, this area has been completely cleared. It's not vegetated now. And so what I thought I heard Mr. Bongiovanni say is that they are going to propose plantings for this area of some sort. So my recommendation would be the plans be revised to show whatever restoration they intend to perform here.
Now, Mr. Planner, the applicant said that they have to go to Wetlands Commission. Now, how does that affect our decisions?
Right,
and what
very,
we-
very interesting. It doesn't really, because as you all know, the law says that the planning commission cannot approve a site plan that requires wetlands approval until the Wetlands Commission has acted. Well, this site plan does not require Wetlands Commission approval because all the improvements are outside of the upland review area. They are currently in front of the Wetlands Commission because they didn't get permission to strip the site. And that's why they're in front of the Wetlands Commission right now. And they've submitted their application. Their application has been received, so they are making progress with the Conservation Commission. But technically, that doesn't really affect your action tonight.
Good, okay.
And then one last thing, the town engineer, his staff reviewed the plans a while ago. The town engineer looked at those comments, and the town engineer just indicated to me tonight that he has no objection to approval, subject to the usual condition that the plans be revised to address the town engineer's concerns.
Okay. Looks good. Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay. Yeah, make a motion to, I'd like to act on it tonight.
Make a motion to move to old business and vote on it tonight.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any questions or comments from the other commissioners? All
You
set?
need public input into this first?
No, it's not a public hearing. It's a
okay.
site plan review.
right.
So we'll be looking at it under old business.
Thank you very much.
For action.
Do we need to vote on it?
We're going to vote on it under old business.
Gotta vote.
We need
the
to vote to
motion.
move it
Oh,
to,
okay, I'm sorry. All in favor of moving it to old business?
aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item under new business is the text amendment motor vehicle. We'll turn it over to the planner.
Air conditioning tonight?
What's that?
Mr. Chairman,
What? Is there a thermostat here that controls this
Not gonna
room?
do you any good. You could turn it down, but
That's right.
it'll probably make it get hotter.
I'm excusing myself from this petition on the auto regulations for the same reasons that I stated previous meetings. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to sit, Commissioner Braverman has been sitting on this application right along for Commissioner Payne, and I'll have him sit for this portion. Mr. Planner.
Okay, as I was preparing the agenda a week or so ago, I'd gotten to about two pages of memo on this item when I got a call from the town attorney asking for a chance to look at any draft before it gets presented to the commission. So I ended up basically giving you very little. But I do want to talk to you tonight about what it is that you would like to restore, or what types of businesses that were allowed back in 2007 that you do want to restore, putting aside for the moment the aesthetic issues of where the bay door faces, or whether it's within 100 feet or 500 feet from a residential neighborhood. Not that that's aesthetic, but if we could help me help you, tell me which businesses you want to restore in which zones, and then I can get started on that, and then we can discuss the more thorny issues, such as how do we retain the aesthetic improvements that the commission has imposed over the last couple of years without impacting too much existing businesses. Specifically, and I'm just going to list 5 of them: gas stations, car dealerships, oil, tire, and brake shops, car washes, and car and truck rental businesses. Those 5 businesses are allowed in different zones under different procedures, either by special permit or as of right, which means the staff can approve them. So what I'd like to know is which of those businesses do you want to resume allowing in which zones? All right, so let me start from the first one, gas stations. Back in the day, gas stations were allowed as of right, in other words, nothing before you except for site plan approval, in the industrial zone. And gas stations were allowed by special permit in the B zone, the business Berlin Turnpike zone, the PD zone, but not in the business town center zone, and not in the commercial zone, which is one of the more obscure commercial zones in Newington. There are, I think, 2 little pockets of them. One is on Willard Avenue, where all those medical office buildings are. That is actually a different zone. It's the commercial zone. And then there's another little pocket of commercial zone, I think off of Kelsey. But basically, but gas stations were never allowed in those zones anyway. So to recap, gas stations would be allowed by right in the industrial zone and by special permit on the Berlin Turnpike. That's it, yeah, in the BBT zone and the PD zone. We think of the PD zone as the Berlin Turnpike, but there actually are pockets of PD zone elsewhere in town. So do you want to resume letting gas stations in those zones by special permit? And I'll stop at that point and let you talk about that.
Before we get into that, can you give me make me understand why the town attorney has requested, this is very unusual for us to have him look at the regulation before we even looked at it and come up with a regulation.
Oh, because it's still part of the Bailiffs v. the current owners of the Firestone property lawsuit. That lawsuit is still alive, and the final resolution of it, to some extent, is based on what new zoning regulations you come up with.
Yeah, but the court isn't dictating to this commission what to do with our zoning reg. They just said, look at your zone, come up with the regulate. They're not, I don't see where they have any input as to what we approve or not approve, as long as we do something.
Well, but what you do will influence how he ends up ruling in favor or to the detriment of one or the other of the litigants.
Actually, that's what I was going to just say. I think that all the town attorney is looking to do is kind of protect us, that we don't get ourselves in a little bit deeper. We're trying to walk ourselves out of it, and then if his opinion is we're only going to get in more muddier water, especially with this pending case, that he wants input.
Okay, it's just very unusual because we've never done it this way before. I mean, he's never had input on something that we haven't even discussed or put it's not even our regular, we don't even have anything to look at. But that's fine, as long as we're covered.
Well, I was about to give you something for this week, but then the attorney asked to look at it.
So he's gonna, if I'm understanding, what he's gonna do is you're gonna write it up still, and then he's gonna advise you, not necessarily to take it out, but he might advise you that, is my opinion, that this probably shouldn't be in there, and then you can advise this commission of that. Not necessarily take it out. You could leave it the way that you write it, just inform us of what his opinion is as we move
Yeah, I'd like to
forward.
know what,
Yeah.
what you, well, it's going to be important that we know originally what you sent to him, and if there is any revisions, I want it red marked. But if he's taking stuff out that you put in, then I want to know about it.
Well, I'll let him explain that to you himself. In fact, as an aside, he told me that he will want to come to your January meeting to give, under executive session, to give you an update on some other things. And we can talk, well, no, we can't talk about this, but he'll be at that meeting. So in open session, he can, well, maybe he could. It is pending litigation. But in any event, he will be at your next meeting and we can talk about it.
Okay. Okay, the item that you just discussed as to where we would allow gas stations. Commissioner Claffey.
Continue, I'm sorry.
Okay, by right or by, the way it is now, we only would allow them in the industrial zone, but without a special exception. I'd like to see any other zones to have, they'd have to have a special exception. Berlin Turnpike Zone, any of the other zones, the BD zone, would all be under special exception. Is that the way it is?
Which is how it used to be.
And that's the way it used to be,
Yes.
right?
And
Commissioner
the way-
Claffey.
And to go off you and more toward planner minor. So getting back to the gas station in the commercial zone, you touched on that. If it was, that was the area where it wasn't allowed back in the day. And so what would be, and you say there's those two small pockets, I think of that, just that one on Willard.
Yeah, I don't envision that as a place that we'd want to.
Well, I'm just thinking you
gas
have the
station.
convenience store on Willard, 7-Eleven, and then on the other end of Willard, you have the Phillips 66, right near the border, West Hartford, West Hill. There's that gas station. I know that's not in that zone. I don't think that's in that commercial
That's a
zone.
different zone.
Make sure.
But,
I think that's a different zone.
but if you were to put it in a commercial zone with a special permit, where I'm going with this, that they could come into next to that vacant lot and potentially sit in front of us to put with a vacant lot in front of Fafner building, which is like it's zoned for something else right now, but the potential to have a gas station in the slap middle of.
What
Willard.
color is that on the map?
Let me find the zoning map so I can display it on the screen.
The reason I
Go
ask
ahead.
is I don't want to
Yeah.
say, we'll let you have it in this area under special permit, but you can't have it in this area. But what's the difference? Because the commercial zone, you have different businesses in different zones by special permit. Not that there's a lot of space on Willard.
One of the areas where you see it, like on New Britain Avenue, there's a gas station, the old gas station. And some of the residential areas, we should be looking at that to make sure that we don't allow them in those type of areas, the little business areas that are in the middle of residential areas.
And Willard is one of those,
Right.
and that's why I bring it up there. The only vacant lot I know right now is that one for, well, there's,
Here and here.
Say that again, one more time?
Yeah. Here and here are the only,
What's the one on
Comments.
174?
up here, I'm sorry, yes. There's that, which,
which is the old gas station that's by the new bed place up in is that it?
well, no, I think there's nothing there because you can't get to it.
Can't
It doesn't have
traverse.
any street frontage. It's in Newington, but
Is
It's
that
on 71, isn't it?
that New Britain Avenue, Hartford Turnpike right there where the
Right,
Marriott
that's
is?
71.
Yeah,
There
let
was
me-
a Shell station here or something.
Now the
Remember
bed,
that? It's a
number
mattress
bed
store
place,
there.
mattress store.
Yeah.
But you could go back to it.
Right.
And now the residential there's no resident,
No residential there.
backs up to West Hartford's residential, but that's.
right.
Almost across from the LA Fitness.
Right.
Okay, go down. Go. the other one that, on the bottom? What's that piece?
What's that, New Britain Avenue?
That's New Britain Avenue, that's where Bel Air is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's Bel Air. Oh, that must be, that's the
That's the
church?
church.
I think that's the church.
And so that's, couldn't be a gas station anyways, okay.
I'm just more how it,
I think that's Bel Air. The church is the bigger piece, no?
Yeah, church, I thought it was a.
I think this is Bel Air, and I think this is the church.
That's the church?
Yeah, that's the.
church is third.
That's
Yeah.
right,
is to the left of Bel Air.
Town Park, yeah.
So going back up 173, Mr. Planner. So that's from Alumni Road.
Right there.
There's
That's
Alumni.
Road, where the medical, okay. So potentially, something, not that there's any in there,
That's where we just approved that.
Maybe we should eliminate the
Building, right?
commercial zone as part,
yeah.
because it's only this one, it looks like this one area, maybe we'll eliminate that as,
Or just leave it as it was back in 2007.
Which
Because
was
back
what?
in the day, you could not have a gas station there.
That's what I was getting at is,
So-
if you were to put it in, include it in all zones, what's the bad ramifications of that?
Right.
For just a gas station?
Right. Same thing with the town center zone. It didn't used to be allowed in the town center zone, and I'm not suggesting you allow it now.
There were 2 gas stations in the center.
There was 2 gas stations in the center of town at one time.
Now,
Yeah, to go to
what's the
town center.
zone over by,
It was
we were talking about it last meeting,
BP and.
where the King Donut is, what's that, Stoddard and?
Stoddard and Hartford Avenue.
Main Street.
Yep, that's the B zone,
So that, okay, so then that
light
was.
blue,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, gotcha.
which I think of as the neighborhood business zone. Your mom and pop type businesses are allowed in the B zone.
that's an area that I
Yep,
wouldn't want.
Yanni's.
I wouldn't want expansion in any other.
But if you were to say, if you were to put the gas, you could have a gas station there currently,
No,
No.
no, you never,
even.
oh, I'm sorry, B zone. By special permit, you could have a gas station there. You could, back in the day, you could.
Good.
Today,
That brings up
You
that
can't.
conversation we had last week, we touched a little bit, of if it was used, if it hasn't changed its occupancy,
right, I know what you're saying, yes. If the owner of that parcel for all these years, even though it's been vacant since longer than I've been here, if the owner of it has always had the dream of once again putting a gas station there, he'll be able to do that regardless of what you do tonight.
And
He-
regardless
He
of
either
the
does or doesn't
litigation.
always have
Okay.
the ability to put a gas station back there if he wants to.
That's what I wanted to, I got you.
Even with the way the regs are written now with the doors? Because how would you ever build a building there with the doors not facing the road, seeing it's on a corner?
Well, I think if I were his attorney, I would argue that his client has the right to put a gas station back there, and it'd be inappropriate for the town to use little tricks like
Right.
that to prevent that from happening.
So would we keep gas stations in the B, BT, PD, I, and just not put it, keep it as is for commercial, like they were never allowed, so keep it that way?
Well, if you go back to the way it used to be, what you'd be doing is allowing them gas stations by right in the industrial zone, by special permit in the B, the BBT, and the PD zones, and nowhere else, not in town center, not in the commercial zone.
And then what would that do to the one that is in town center? Does it keep it non-conforming if that's the case? There's
Yes,
still one, right?
Yeah,
yes, and
I'm assuming that is the town center zone still?
yes, it
It's
is.
close enough?
Right.
and if that one ever went, if something happened there and they went out of business and they redeveloped it into something else, that would,
Kick it out.
we wouldn't look to have it put back in.
Okay, I think I have a sense of the
Okay.
commission. Now, move on. Car dealerships, exactly the same. They used to be allowed by right in the industrial zone, and they were allowed by special permit in the B zone, the BBT zone, the PD zone, but they were prohibited in the town center zone and in the C zone. And at the moment, they're not allowed anywhere. They're only allowed in the industrial zone.
I think that's the correct way to do it. This would be the same, just what we just did.
You mean resume allowing them by special permit in
All the
those other
zones except the I
Right,
zone.
except for, well, as of right in the I zone, but by special permit
Yes,
in the B zone, the BBT, and the PD zone, but not allowed at all in the town center zone or the C commerce zone,
right.
okay?
Any questions or comments on that?
No, I think I'm okay with
Okay,
that.
go ahead.
Okay, next, oil, tire, brake shops. Again, same thing. They were allowed as of right in the industrial zone, and they were allowed by special permit in the B zone, the BBT zone, and the PD zone. But they were never allowed in the C zone or in the town center zone.
I have a question. I'm going back. Forget me, but going back a little ways. When this was brought up, remember, it was with I think gas stations. Like a year ago, we talked about it in the
No, that
like
was,
North Mountain Road. We brought. I don't know why that area of town bring up where they. Remember, we were changing the rules.
And I think it had something to do with the convenience store.
Yeah,
part of
convenience
it.
store and
Yeah.
gas station.
Was the two
that was
together?
Yeah. You
I
bring
don't
up
remember what the issue is, but that we were talking about. I just don't remember what the issue was.
the oil, tire, brakes, and then there seems to be other things that get classified under cars, like stereos. I mean, this town's been known for stereo shops and tint shops, and that have to do with cars, but they're not oil, tire, or brake.
we classify those as retail, don't
Right,
we?
well,
That
exactly.
was it, the retail
Right.
versus gas, okay.
And the distinction was because oil, tire, brakes, they are regulated by the state. You have to get a certain kind of license for those. You don't need any kind of license to put in, audio and window tinting and those things.
I just didn't want to think to make, well, let me ask you this, are there things that we may need to put in to, or is it, there's never been a problem with those shops popping up because now that, they changed their rules hypothetically.
Right,
we're
they've
gonna have
never
a
been a-
rush of these, remember Tweeter, et cetera, there were a bunch, you got Best Buy still there doing their thing.
Right, they've never been a problem because the staff has always treated them as retail and not auto-related, even though it is auto-related, but
Okay,
it's.
that's why I just remember that from a year ago, so, all right, thank you.
Okay, so you want to resume allowing them by right in the industrial zone, but by special permit in the B zone, the BBT,
Yes.
okay? Okay, fourth one, car washes. Again, same thing, allowed by right in the industrial zone, but by special permit in those other three business zones that I've
What
been
about
talking
if
about.
they've opened up a car wash in a gas station just recently?
The
The Sunoco on the Pike.
They shouldn't, unless they were able to make an argument that they were simply restoring one that had been
I think
idle
that's the
for
case.
years.
There
They
was
used to
one-
have a car wash up there.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's been a car wash there for,
But it went from a machine to now just hand.
Okay, but I wouldn't
Gonna
split
say,
that here. I wouldn't, because I wouldn't want to stand in front of a
Let me
judge
ask you
and
this,
split that
now,
here.
you say that, but then you go to a community that borders us that allows it, and you got 10 or 15 cars laid out in a parking lot getting washed. Now, 5 years ago when that car wash was working in the back, it had a chute, and it just, one car went in and went. You had no staff, no nothing. You hit a button, you went in. Just like the one on Stoddard and Main Street at that Sunoco, or Shell.
Shell.
So beware that it shows a bay, they pull a car in, two guys wash it, goes out, and then they just line up getting clean. If we don't watch it, you're gonna see 10 or 15 cars at a clip getting cleaned, where, I know they're the same context, but I just wonder how you.
Different impact.
Different
You're
impact,
saying.
yeah.
Yes, right,
So-
okay, so we'll keep an eye on
So is
that.
there a different class, I guess, between car washing and car detailing? That's really what you're talking about, right?
yeah, we don't regulate car detailing.
No, correct.
So that means they could do it. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, they could do
That
it.
would be a different, well, you're splitting hairs on car detailing, car washing.
yes, sometimes, but I don't, car wash, I think of a large amount of water. Car detailing, not a lot of water.
So how do you wash a car?
I take it to a car wash,
But how do you wash?
and every
a
once in a
car?
while, when it gets bad enough, my wife makes me take it
What
to a
is the-
detailer.
So how does the homeowner at their house wash their car?
They're exempt from all of our
I'm
rules.
just using it as an
They're
example.
exempt, they don't have to.
So, all right, I'll leave it to if 15, 20 cars are sitting there and you're getting complaints, so then but I wanna, we do have to make a distinction to
And they are,
Commissioner Woods.
and they would be by special permit. So if somebody wanted to introduce a new car wash tomorrow, they'd have to come before you for a special
in
permit.
those.
They'd have to satisfy you that it would not result in 15 cars queued up down the street. you would have the ability to say no because they weren't able to convince you that it wouldn't create a queuing problem.
So, can I ask a question?
Yes.
We'll use 3333 because it's a big piece of property. Let's say CarMax now wants to come into town. Would this allow that or not allow it?
That zone is a,
Yeah.
that's a what, a PD zone?
That's a PD zone, and that would be
Yeah.
a car dealership, so yes, they would be able to come in and apply for a special permit to
Special
do
permit.
that. Yes.
Big lot, like 20-some
Yeah.
acres. Oh,
Yeah, I am not suggesting that that's what they're doing.
But that's what-
Yeah, I mean,
that
that's
would-
usually
that's
what
what
they
the
look for,
process
is a
would
very
be.
large piece of property, and, I mean, I don't think we have the traffic, for it, but.
heck, you were down in Berlin.
Okay, and then the last category is car and truck rentals, which are similar to car dealerships aesthetically, but they are regulated differently. And again, allowed as of right in the industrial zone, by special permit in the 3 zones we've been talking about, but not allowed in the other zones.
I think to keep it consistent, you keep them all the same.
Okay.
Any,
Okay,
any
good.
comments on that?
You have two right now. You've got Hertz and the other one, right?
Yeah, Hertz and Enterprise.
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 Okay, any other?
Okay, good. That's,
anything
that's
else
all
for
I need
this?
from you on this for now. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Going to the next one, Newington Ridge Preserve. Want to
Yep.
just
Yes,
give us,
Yep.
we're all pretty much up to date as to what's going on there. They paved the road.
Yes, that's my understanding. I wasn't out there myself, but the town engineer told me that they have paved it.
Commissioners have been out there. Commissioner Sobieski has made a couple of 2 or 3 trips out there. Commissioner Woods, Ms. Fox, we've all pretty much been out there and looked at it. So only comment I got is I hope that they backfill the curbing at this point. And Commissioner Sobieski brought up that the water gate is a little high in one of the areas. It might get knocked out by a plow. Anything else on that? Okay, next item on the agenda is old business. Petition 50-18. You want to read that,
Petition 50.
Secretary Claffey?
Where is it?
Old business, the second page.
That's a few jobs.
Petition old business, A, petition 50-18, special permit, section 3.4.9, interior lot, 179 Meadow Street, estate of Fay H. Karanian, excuse me, thank you. Owner applicant Mark Friend, 81 Rankin Road, Glassbury, Connecticut, contact, excuse me.
Okay, the interior lots and the subdivision itself are obviously closely related, but I believe you can act on the interior lots separately from the subdivision, and in fact, that's what I've recommended you do, that you approve with conditions the interior lot. But if later on tonight you end up denying the subdivision, then obviously this approval for the rear lot, or interior lot is just a piece of paper. So my recommendation is that it be approved, but with the condition that they move the house, as I was talking about last week, to put the front yard to the south rather than to the west, which we talked about last week, and I know I didn't persuade all of you, but I'm sticking to it as my recommendation, but it's your decision, obviously.
So, want to talk about the Commissioner Claffey?
Yeah. Why would we want to move the house again?
Okay, because.
Explain this to me and
Right,
how it
because with a
goes
rear
against our
lot, because
code.
with a rear lot, the front yard, the nominal front yard of a rear lot is normally the lot, the line, the boundary that intersects where the driveway is. That is usually the front of a rear lot. In our case, though, when I wrote the regulation a couple years ago, I forgot to include an actual definition of where the front should be. I thought it was obvious. Turns out it's not obvious. And so when the applicant put together their design, they wanted to maximize their ability to get 3 lots. Nothing wrong with that. It's America. But I think I don't know if they could have gotten, well, let me start over. I think they can still get 3 lots by just moving the house over a little bit. And I feel they should. I feel that's where the front of the property of a rear lot should be, is intersecting the driveway. That's how the vast majority of existing rear lots in Newington are. That's how towns that have a rear lot regulation that define where the, quote, front is will say that it's the line that intersects the driveway. That's where it's supposed to be.
But wasn't there a question that was brought up that it's not in the zoning regulations? This is.
Yeah, which puts it in your lap to make the decision. And I'm recommending you decide the way I'm recommending, but it's your decision. It's your call.
Chairman, yep. Petition 50-18, special permit. I move to approve with conditions petition 50-18, special permit. Section 3.4.9, interior lots, 179 Meadow Street, estate of Fay H. Karanian, owner and applicant Mark Friend, 81 Rakin Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut, contact with no conditions. I disagree with the town planner's opinion on this, and I think that the layout that they presented us was a nice layout for them to sell the properties and to have, to blend into the neighborhood.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it gets approved without any conditions. Please read petition 5118, Mr. Secretary. The next one down.
Did I close my book? I got it right. B, petition 51-18, re-subdivision at 179 Meadow Street, estate of Fay A. Carrion. Owner applicant Mark Friend, 81 Rankin Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut, contact.
Okay, this is the subdivision that contains the two lots that you discussed a minute ago. And during the public hearing, it was brought to the commission's attention by two neighbors that some of the land being used for the subdivision was land that was part of the, I'll call it the open space of the Bridle Path subdivision that was approved back in the 70s. And the way that the property is being developed would prevent people from being able to walk the way they have in the past. So after the hearing, I called the engineer the next day and discussed it with him and explained to him that what he needs to do is move the driveway over and move the detention, the rain garden over to restore a way for people who wanted to walk up and down there if they wanted to. And I discussed it further with the engineer today. He did not prepare revised plans for tonight, and I don't blame him. He wanted to make sure that the idea was acceptable to the commission before he wasted his client's money revising plans that were not acceptable. But if the commission is willing to approve it with that stipulation, the plans will be revised. I'll examine them. I could even actually bring them to the commission before I even give them to the chairman to sign if the commission wants to. But this will preserve the neighbors' ability to, if they want to continue to use that path that they have used in the past.
Okay, the way it is now, the retention or that rain garden is on part of that, I thought it was like 15-foot pathway. So we would have to move that or shrink the size of you could even shrink the size of that rain garden because it was over-designed. If that's what the commission wishes to do. Commissioner Woods.
Yeah, and the planner also said the driveway needs to be moved, but the driveway doesn't necessarily need to be moved because this is just a right-of-way. So as long as they could access it, the driveway would just become part of the right-of-way, correct?
Yes, and we're fine-tuning it at this point. But I think people should be allowed to continue to walk on grass and not feel they're walking on somebody's driveway. And it can be done. It can be done without impacting the enjoyment of the future owner of this lot.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the planner on the condition number 2. He refers to a memo on August 15th. If he could give us an update on what that memo of August 15th states, I'd appreciate it.
There's two memos.
I know about the town engineer's memo. The town engineer's memo is from the town engineer, and that's usually standard. I'm just not sure what the other one was about.
think the commissioner remembers this subdivision was submitted earlier and then withdrawn to address some of the issues with the open space. The August 15 memo, that was my review of the original plans with some changes to be made. There was some information missing. I don't have it with me, but it was my review.
It was everything that the applicant agreed to do, is that correct?
Yes,
But
that's
you
correct.
just want to basically get them on the record?
Exactly.
Just like the town engineer, is that correct?
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have a quick
Yes.
question.
Go ahead.
On this access, that people can walk across to these private properties, so to speak, supposing somebody plants some bushes, flowers, whatever, there's nothing to stop them or prohibit them from doing this, am I correct?
Well, let's think about it for a minute. If they planted trees that stop people from being able to walk, which they have the right to do, I think those people would have the right to take them to court and make them remove those trees. If they plant flowers, I think their neighbors have a right to walk through those flowers and trample them down because people have the right to walk there.
So now, basically, you're telling me that these people have an easement to walk across this property?
That's a good way
what
to
I'm
think of
wondering.
it. Yes.
And that's legal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
On petition 51-18, I move to approve with conditions 51-18, re-subdivision of 179 Meadow Street, estate of Fake H. Karanian, owner and applicant, Mark Friend, 81 Rankin Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut, contact with the findings. One, the commission has approved by a 3/4 vote that the applicant's request for a waiver to the improved streets requirements of section 3.5.1 of the subdivision regulations. And condition one, the record subdivision plan and grading utilities and improvement plan will be revised to preserve the pedestrian access to the western 15-foot of the lots 1 and 2 and 3. And condition 2, the applicant shall revise the plans in accordance with the town planner's memo of August 15, 2018. And condition 3, the applicant shall revise the plans in accordance with the town engineer's memo of August 14, 2018.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any comments, questions?
So before you vote, you need to do what I said under findings because you haven't done that yet.
Okay, Commissioner Woods.
I was going to say, just need to, Commissioner Payne said it correctly, but it's just written wrong in the motion. And the second petition is written as 50-18. It needs to be 51-18, correct? At least on mine it is.
Yeah, mine was too, but I corrected it.
Yeah, no,
and
you
I
said
think
it
I
correctly.
said
Yeah.
it correctly.
Yeah. Just want to make sure that when they
Are we
actually type
supposed
it
to do
out.
this
Right.
for first, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
why don't you
I'll-
make a motion to do the waiver so that we can take a vote? It has to
okay.
be by 2/3 vote.
should I withdraw the other motion then, and
That would be
I'll
appropriate.
withdraw the other motion that I had on the
You
table.
gotta withdraw your second.
Second.
Withdraw the second on 51-18.
I move to grant a waiver to section 3.15.1 at 179 Meadow Street, estate of Fay H. Karanian, owner and applicant, Mark Friend, 81 Rankin Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut. Contact. Findings. 1, the property at 179 Meadow Street meets the following requirements. A, the property for which the waiver is sought is uniquely affected by these regulations. B, physical features of the property or its location cause exceptional difficulty or unusual hardship in meeting the requirements of these regulations. C, the granting of the waiver will not have a significant adverse effect upon adjacent property or to public health and safety. D, the granting of the waiver will not be in conflict with the plan of development. And E, where it is proposed to vary any engineering standard contained in these regulations, a favorable report from the town engineer has been received.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you got your 3/4 unanimous vote.
I move to approve with conditions petition 51-18, re-subdivision of 179 Meadow Street, estate of Fay H. Karanian, owner and applicant, Mark Friend, 81 Rankin Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut. Contact. Findings. 1, the commission has approved by 3/4 vote the applicant's request for a waiver to the improved streets requirements of section 3.5.1 of the subdivision regulations. Condition 1, the record subdivision plan and grading utilities improvement plan will be revised to preserve pedestrian access to the western 15 feet of lots 1, 2, and 3. Condition 2, the applicant shall revise the plans in accordance with the town planner's memo of August 15, 2018. And Condition 3, the applicant shall revise the plans in accordance with the town engineer's memo of August 14, 2018.
Now, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Next item to take up under this was the petition we heard tonight on the Costello Road application. There's a draft motion. Would someone please read that?
And I'm going to recuse myself for the reasons stated earlier.
Commissioner Camillo.
Petition 52-18, site plan approval at 188 Costello Road, 188 Costello Road LLC, owner applicant Brian DiCiaccio, 167 Kelsey Street, Newington, Connecticut, contact. I move to approve with conditions petition 52-18, site plan approval at 188 Costello Road, 188 Costello Road LLC, owner applicant Brian DiCiaccio, 167 Kelsey Street, Newington, Connecticut, contact. Conditions: 1, the applicant will revise the plans to address the comments of the town planner dated November 30th, 2018. 2, the applicant will revise the plans to the satisfaction of the town engineer. 3, the applicant will revise the site plans to include architectural elevations in accordance with section 5.3.4.5.
I've got a question, Mr. Planner. The architecturals, they're gonna normally, now, before I sign them, they will be in the, but the rest of these commissioners will not have the opportunity to see them.
Correct?
Is that a problem with the commission? You want me I will review them as part of what I sign. This isn't an industrial area.
I don't have a problem with that.
I'm not sure what kind of a building they have, but,
Better
Commissioner,
than what's there.
huh?
Better than what's there.
Commissioner,
The town engineer is gonna look at the elevations and all that, or are you gonna do that?
no,
You mean the architectural elevations? Well, I'll look at them, but it's just it's a requirement of your subdivision, site plan regs that an applicant of a building shows you what the building's gonna look like. And they actually has to be part of the Mylars even, so that's what it'll be.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not gonna pass judgment on them. I'll just present them to the chairman.
do we know what they're proposing
Well,
at this point?
yeah, you sort of do. In the agenda packet 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, today, when this was presented to you, there's a kind of a crude sketch from the manufacturer of what the building will look like.
The pre-engineered building? And what is it, metal skin?
I believe so, yeah.
Is it, would you come up and just give us just a brief, so this commission knows before I sign these, and then they go take a look, they say, well, that's not what
Good
we
evening.
approved.
Like
Your
you
name
said,
and address for the record.
Brian DiCiaccio, 188 Costello Road. It is a prefabbed steel structure, skin,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, with a masonry facade on the front of the, that would be the east section of it.
Okay, so you have a masonry front.
Yes,
Okay,
to the sill of the windows.
good. Okay, that's a normal industrial building. Okay, just sort of edification of the commissioners before I sign the Mylar, so that they have an understanding of what it's going to look like. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you have your approval, but you still have to get to whatever you're doing with wetlands.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that ends the, there anything else under old business? I don't believe there is. Huh?
Oh, my bad.
That's next.
Okay, town planners, report. No,
Get it
I'm
back
sorry,
on the
I'm
screen.
sorry. Petitions for public
Schedule.
hearing scheduling.
Right, okay, this is an application for an accessory apartment in the existing house at 99 Cedarwood Lane, so I recommend the hearing be scheduled for your next meeting.
That's Freddie Callahan's house?
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions, commissioners? No? Okay, we're all set. Town planners report, plan of conservation and development.
Okay, I'm trying to get this back. Back to work here.
Gotta pay the electric bill.
The heat probably overheated. We should have
No, it's a short meeting.
a parking lot.
Don't make it any longer.
To get it back on the screen,
We have it in our book.
right, but the audience needs to see, well, there's not much left on the agenda, actually, but,
That's one
So
thing.
outdated.
And you went over this once before, I think, the last meeting, didn't you?
yes. But I'm trying to get the agenda back on the screen here. I don't know why, it's suddenly,
It overheated.
I'm looking at it on my screen, but it's not doing the,
CJ, if you collect enough taxes, we could buy a new one.
There you go.
Yeah, hit power on the TV. Get a 7-year-old in here, let's face it.
You're right.
Well, I wouldn't waste any more time on it. There's just the only things left for the two people in the audience, our liaisons, is after this, the communication, public participation, remarks in closing, and, okay, they both have the agenda, it's
okay,
fine.
okay, good. Right.
So under town planner's report, anything you want to bring up about the conservation, the plan of conservation and development?
Well, there's the 5 pages of request for proposal, which spells out what the expectations the commission will have for the consultant that we hire, and what their role would be, what the commission's role, what my role would be. So, just want to make sure that there was nothing in there that any of the commissioners had any problem with before we go out to bid, which won't be for a couple more months, but
So we have time to reread it
Absolutely.
again, possibly, and give a final opinion at our next meeting? Is that-
absolutely no
We
rush.
have plenty of time for that?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's what we'll do. Anything else under planner's report?
No.
So, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
So this is only proposed RFP. You will, when you get ready, you'll put the final one together that we'll look at? I'll have input into that?
Well, this is what I recommend.
Okay, but, so we're gonna be able to make changes before you put the final RFP up?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, that's
That's
what I
right, I'll
wanted.
hold off.
We're gonna have another month to look
Okay.
at this, and then you can massage it any way you want.
Okay.
And then at the next meeting, we'll give it back to him, and then he could do the final.
All right, thank you.
Without all of your comments or whatever you want to do with it.
Thank you.
Okay, communications, any communications?
No, next CROG meeting, if there's no snow, will be in January.
Okay, good. Public participation, Gail, Carol? Remarks by commissioners, anything else to bring before the commission? I have no closing remarks, and a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I lost a phone.